Hi, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Sam.
And today we're going to be doing a review of Expeditions, the sequel to Scythe. I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick overview of the game, a short-ish quick overview of the game, and then we'll come back and give you our final thoughts. All right, Expeditions, the sequel to Scythe. Right? So the times of Scythe and all the war has finally come to an end. There is now seemingly peace in Europa. In this game, this is going to have to deal with a massive meteorite that has hit Europa, okay? And after this meteorite hit, there was a doctor that went and did an expedition. I won't get into all the story there. And there were some rescue teams that went after him after they hadn't heard anything, and nobody's come back. So now, each player is going to be representing a war hero from the times of Scythe, and they are going to be have these privately funded expeditions to go and see what's going on with this meteorite. The meteorite, when it hit, it caused it awakened a ton of ancient corruption in the land. And so you are going to be one of these heroes to go and explore this area. Now, I will kind of hit real closely. If you're thinking, okay, is this a lot like Scythe? This is not like Scythe. This is going to be the teach of it. There's really not a whole lot that you're going to see that's like Scythe in this game, other than maybe the ending of the game. So, just like Scythe, in Expeditions, players are going to be placing out these stars for different accomplishments that they achieve. And once somebody places out their fourth and final star, that is going to trigger the end of the game. At the end of the game, whoever has the most coins is going to be the winner. Just like Scythe, whoever has the most coins was the winner of that game as well. So, getting into this is quite a table hog. I can't even show you all of the board on the screen, so I can move the table a little bit so you can see it. But as you can see, it is quite the table hog for the camera. So with that being said, I'll focus on different parts. But let me show you. So at the very beginning of the game, each player is going to get a mech board with their mech. Each mech is going to have its own special ability. Every player is going to start with their stars. Here, they're also going to have their guile and power tokens here at the bottom, as well as their action cube up there. Players will also randomly get a hero, as well as a companion. There are a number to pick to get from the game. You'll always get the matching hero with their companion, so these two would obviously go together, but they each have their own special unique abilities and powers as well. So in this game, we're going to take a look at the player board real quick. And like I said, I'll show you more closely as we go through the actual individual actions. But what you're going to be doing on your turn is essentially you're going to be moving this cube around. Okay, so right now it starts here because at the beginning of your turn, you're going to do all three of the actions that we're going to go over. But in future turns, you're going to be following these little red arrows to choose what two actions you want to take. So you'll be moving your cube, and whichever two actions are not covered up, those are the actions you're going to be taking, and you'll be moving them around from turn to turn to determine what actions you're going to be taking. There's also going to be a time where you will be able to refresh, and we'll talk more about that. And then eventually it'll move back over and you'll take all three actions again. But that's pretty much what you're going to be doing when you're deciding what actions you're going to be taking and kind of the game flow. Each turn you're going to be sliding this cube around and doing the actions that are not covered up. Okay? So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the first action. It is the most simple, and that's going to be the move action. And I'll talk more about like all the other things that are on the board as they come up. It doesn't make a lot of sense to get into it right now. So with the move action, every player has their mech. At the very beginning, you will be on this base camp board, but you can move 1, 2, or 3 spaces when you take the move action. Now, you can move through occupied spaces, meaning spaces with other mechs in them. You just cannot end your turn in the same space as another mech. You have to move when you take the move action. You cannot move 0. Again, the range is 1, 2, and 3. You cannot make a circle to where you, 1, 2, 3, end up in the same space that you started your turn. So you have to be in a different location than which you began, and you cannot be in the same space as another mech. Also, there are obviously these starting face-up spaces that you have, but as you're going to be going, you're going to be unlocking these face-down locations, or discovering them, I should say. And whenever you end your movement, so if you move to a face-down location, your movement will automatically end. So even if I have 3 and I go 1, 2, I have to stop, and I'm going to reveal this face-down location. So I'm going to take this map token. Every face-down location will have one. You'll automatically gain that. You will flip over this tile and reveal it. And you are going to add corruption to these tiles. Now, I'll grab this one real quick so you can see it. Each tile will have a space. They'll have a left side here, a right side here, and this is going to be where you're going to be taking corruption. This corruption is a 5+. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bag that we have of corruption, and I'm going to draw corruption until I get 5 or more. I drew this orange corruption here. It is a 5, so I don't have to draw more. However, if I did in fact draw a 4 first, I would then have to pull out another one, and at what point it could be the 5, and I would stack them on top of each other. So let's say I drew the 4 first. It's not 5 or more. I draw the second one. I would just place that on top. Okay, so that's what you're going to do every time you discover a new tile. You'll flip it over and fill in the corruption. Okay, so that's how you're going to work with that's how you're going to do the move action. Okay, there is one location, just so you know, it is the number 20 location. It'll be on the north side of the board, which you can't see right now. Each of these tiles have south, coastal, I believe. I don't think it's central. I think it's coastal, and then the north. And so those different areas, as you go up, the numbers will be higher. The 20 is at the very top row. When you reveal it, there is a special corruption token that you're going to place, this 20 corruption, and we'll talk more about corruption in a little bit, that you're going to be using instead of drawing from the bag for that specific tile. Okay, so that is going to be the move action. Now let's go ahead. We have the play and the gather action. I think since we have this right now, let's do the gather action next before we jump into the play action. So let's take a look at gather. Now with gathering, what you're going to be doing with gathering is whichever tile your mech is on, you are going to be resolving the ability on that tile. So here at the isolated settlement, I will be able to gain either a blue or a yellow worker. You can't gain both, you gain one or the other, and when you gain them, you will just put whichever one you pick on your board. Okay, so these ones are going to be pretty straightforward with gathering workers. This one here allows you to gain the benefit of an adjacent tile. This one here lets you gain any of the cards that are face up, or that are on the board. So you're going to see these 2 here. There's also another 3 that I can show you real quick that you're going to have. So you will gain one of those cards. One thing to keep in mind is that any newly gained cards are going to be placed in your active row. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about playing cards. But anything that you typically gain will go into your active row. You won't gain anything from those cards when you get them, but you'll be able to get them back into your hand in future turns. We'll talk a little bit about that when we cover refreshing. Okay, so let's go ahead and move back in to look at some more of these different symbols. Here, this is going to allow you to draw 2 cards from the deck, and you will keep 1. Here, you are going to gain the top card of the deck, but then you'll also be able to rescue a card from your active pile or your active row. So essentially moving a card from your active row to your hand. Other tiles, as you're going to see, like I said, they're going to be covering up some actions, but you'll go and you'll be able to gain power and guile. So if I were here, I would then be able to move up on the power and guile track by 1. and those are going to be used in the future to remove corruption from the different tiles. And we'll talk a little bit about that later as well. So you're going to be gaining power and guile. You're going to have things like this, which says that you get to play a card from your hand. And so we'll talk more about what that looks like when you actually play a card, but that one lets you play a card from your hand. You'll be able to gain more workers. These might let you gain, well, you can't see it. This one here is going to let you gain an adjacent card. But as you can see, there is all this corruption on here. And as you remove them, you are going to have other abilities. Of course, I unveil the same ones. You're going to unveil different abilities that you're going to have access to. Now, I'll talk real briefly about this one here. So again, you're taking either the left side or the right side. When you take this action that shows a star, that is how you're going to place your stars out onto the base camp board. So if you have accomplished the goals from the base game board, like having so many quests done, having melded so many meteorites, having upgraded your mechs, corruption, having a certain number of cards or workers / map tokens, you'll be able to place out your star, and that'll get you more points depending on how many quests you've done. So we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So that's how you're going to place out your stars. These upgrades are going to allow you to upgrade your mechs, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then you have melding, which we will talk about again in a little bit, but these are a lot more in-depth kind of actions. And so when you're gathering, you are just resolving these different symbols that are on the tiles that your mech is on. Sweeping is just going to be able to get rid of cards that are out on the board, and essentially discarding them and refreshing it. Okay, so if you ever hear about a sweep pile, it's essentially like a discard pile. Yeah, so that is pretty much going to cover the gather action. So I'm going to go into more deep detail about these more elaborate actions when I talk about the play. So let's go ahead and jump into the play action. Okay, so with the play action, we can get a little bit more in detail. That's why I kind of saved this one for last. So with the play action, what you're going to be doing is playing a card. Now, when I talk about your hand of cards, the way that this game has everything set up is that you're going to have your active row of cards that is going to be placed over here. And then on this side, you're going to have your hand of cards, all right? So they're always going to be face up here if they're in your hand, face up over here if they're active. And so what you're going to do when you play a card is you're going to take a card from your hand, so on this side, and let's say I have this yellow worker here, and I am going to play my little bear companion here. Okay, when you play a card, you are going to gain the core value of that card. So you're going to have these icons here in the top left-hand corner. The core value is going to be the very top left. So in this case, I'm going to gain 1 guile. However, if I had placed 1 star already out, then I would get a 2nd guile. And if I had placed 2 stars, I would then also get 1 power. So this is how you're going to be generating a lot of power and guile, as well as when you're gathering on the board, gathering those resources, okay? And again, those are going to help you when it comes to vanquishing corruption, which we will talk about shortly, okay? When you place this card, you'll immediately gain that, and then you will have an option to also do the card ability. This is where the workers that we've been gathering are going to come in handy. So each card is going to have a worker ability here that will be triggered when you choose to place a worker there. So if I choose to place this worker here, this one says I can rescue an active card, which rescuing again is taking any card that I have played. So I might have had another card out here like so that I had played. But if I rescue, I can pick a card from my active area, take it, any workers that are on it go back into my board, and this card goes back into my hand so that I can play it again later on in this, on a turn. Okay, so this one will let me rescue, or I can vanquish. Okay, so when I vanquish, what that's going to look like is, let's say my mech was here and I had, let's put some corruption out on it. I need 8 or plus since this is a north tile. So I pulled that 4 and then I had to pull this 5. So I can vanquish. If I had, let's say it was like this. To vanquish means that I can spend my power or guile in order to remove corruption from the tile that I'm on. So in this case, I can spend 5 vanquish, 5 power to remove this corruption. And I'm going to place that on my board because at the end of the game, that is going to score me points for having removed that corruption. Also, I can do multiple times. So yes, I spent 5 to remove the first corruption. I can now spend another 4 to remove this corruption as well. So you can remove multiple corruption tiles from your location for one vanquish action. All right. And then this one says that I can then gain the revealed benefits, which here is an upgrade ability. So when you do an upgrade, this is the perfect time to talk about that. I'm going to be looking at cards that have these gears. So the cards are going to have gears on them. They're going to have hearts, or they're going to have, so there's a heart, and then you're also going to have these meteorite cards, okay? And each one of them will be used a little differently. When I do the upgrade action, I'm going to be looking at my meteorite cards. And what I'm going to do is I can take this meteorite card, and I will be able to tuck it under here. So I get 4 maximum upgrades here, and this is a permanent upgrade to my mech. So if I choose, and it can be an active card, it can be a card in my hand, doesn't matter. But this would let me now, once per turn, if I rescued another card, I can either gain a core value or activate its ability. Okay, so now I always have this ongoing ability for my mech, and it's also going to earn me victory points at the end of the game. This is going to earn me 3 victory points. Okay, so that is how the upgrade is going to work. Now, some of these cards, as you are playing them, they're going to have these instant abilities here. So this one, as soon as I play a worker here, I would instantly be able to rescue a card. It's really small, but that's what that symbol is. And this one, since it talks about rescuing another card, that applies to the instant ability. So even though I just rescued, I could then also still trigger this, which says if I rescue a card, which I just did, then I can either gain its core value or activate its ability. Okay, so keep that in mind. However, when you do tuck this card and use it for an upgrade, you will lose that instant ability. All right, you'll just have the ongoing ability there. So that's how that is going to work. So that's that action. Let's go ahead and look at another card here that if we play here. So again, you would gain the core value and any additional guile or power based on these conditions. And here I would be able to play a red worker here where I can gain a face-up quest or solve. Okay, so a face-up quest is again going to be one of the 5 cards that are on the board, like this, that have a heart. Okay, and what a quest is when you want to do this solve action. So as you can see, every single quest is going to have a number and it's going to tell you the location. So in this case, north, that is going to match up with a tile on the board. If I am in that location, so if I'm on tile number 17 and I have this card, whether it's active or in my hand, doesn't matter, and I trigger this card and it says I can solve. What that means is that I can quest at this location. So I'm here, I'm going to have to spend 3 power. So right here along the side, it's going to tell you the cost. So I have 3 power, I spend that 3 power, and then I will then gain a coin, and I can also trigger any adjacent abilities from the location that I'm at. Okay, what I'm going to do is then tuck this up here, and I can have a maximum of 4 of each of these that I'm talking about, unless you have the ability that lets you have 5. And reason why you're going to be wanting to do quests is, again, just like upgrades, melds, and questing is going to be an objective that you're going for with your stars, but also with the hearts. Just kind of like in regular Scythe, the more hearts you have, the more value your stars are going to have. So if I do 3 or more quests, each of my stars are going to be worth 10 coins at the end of the game. Okay, so that's what you're going to be doing for those quests. That's how that is going to work. So that's solving. We talked about upgrading. Let's see if I have one. I don't know. Let's just grab one real quick and see if I can show you real quick. It's on there. But there's an ability called melding. So melding is going to have to do with these meteorite cards. Of course, I can't find it right now. But it's going to look like this symbol. So melding whenever is going to look like this. So let's just throw this off to the side. This little purple house looking thing. Those are going to have to deal with these meteorite cards. And again, you're going to be able to tuck them. However, they're going to go down here. And whenever you meld, you will immediately do what it says, as well as any other melding cards that you have. So if I had another 2 or 3, I would trigger them each time I melded a new card. So this one said that I would gain $1 for each solved quest. So I would trigger that, and then I would trigger any other melds that I have there. And again, melding is going to be an objective that you are working towards. So that's melding, that's upgrading, that's questing. We already talked about how you are going to put stars out onto the board. And I think the only other thing that I have to talk about is, well, we already talked about vanquishing. So we talked about vanquishing, solving, upgrading, melding. Yeah, I think that covers about it. The last thing to cover is going to be refreshing. Refreshing is going to be when you gather all of your cards from your active side. So you're going to take all your cards from your active and you're going to place them back onto your hand side. Any workers that were on those cards will also go back, and that way on your next turn, you'll slide your cube over and you will do all 3 actions. So your very first turn, you're going to do all 3 actions, and then the first turn after you refresh, you will do all 3 actions. Now, you cannot keep refreshing over and over again. That is in the rules that you do have to, you can't do it every single turn. You have to actually have the cube up here in order to refresh. So you can't just keep going back and forth. You have to follow the red arrows. So that's covering refreshing, solving, vanquishing, melding, upgrading. Once you learn those different rules and those terminologies, it'll be a lot more better flow to the game. But yeah, after somebody has placed their final star, that's going to trigger the end of the game. And then once everybody is done, you will tally up your coins, and whoever has the most coins is going to win. You're going to get points for your upgrades that you have. Any coins that you have gathered, you're going to get 2 coins for each corruption that you have removed from the board, as well as coins for your stars that you've placed out. And whoever has the most is the winner of the game. So that is a very general overview of the game. There is a lot that goes into this. Turns are pretty simple, like you can see, but it's going to come down to learning those terms and knowing the different symbols and iconography that you're going to encounter. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take this back up top and give you our final thoughts.
All right, and we're back. Thank you for the overview of the game. Let's jump into the criteria.
Yes. So one thing I will mention before we jump into the different sections that we have is that I know that this game is going to be compared to Scythe quite a bit. This is definitely nothing like Scythe. So I just want to get that out there. I'm not going to be comparing this to Scythe in any way. The only thing is the setting and the way that the game ends, essentially. and scoring because of coins, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But other than that, this is a very much a different game from Scythe. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's talk about the production of the game first.
Yep.
So when we talk about production, we're talking about the components, the art, graphic design, that kind of thing. I think it's obviously looks a lot like Scythe. It follows that it's the same universe, so you're going to have that same art style. It looks great for that alternate, what is it called? Like alternate history kind of Europa 1920s kind of stuff. So I think the art is honestly gorgeous. I really like it. The graphic design can be a little bit to handle at the beginning because there are a lot of icons and trying to remember what all those icons mean. And but once you get a few plays under your belt, those should become pretty much second knowledge, and you'll just know what they are. But they're pretty straightforward once you learn the game, I think, and give it a couple plays. Maybe the first play will be a little rocky, but by the time the second play comes around, I think you'll be okay. Components wise was the one thing that kind of threw me off. This doesn't feel like it should be such a big game. This game is a table hog. During the overview, it was very difficult to get everything onto the board, and trying to move everything around to try to do my best to do a teach. But the tiles were just so big, right? The mechs were huge, which is a cool feeling. That's an awesome thing to have as a giant mech.
I liked the big tiles.
But, did you? Okay, maybe it's just me, but I just thought they were super big, which isn't a horrible thing. I just was like, okay, it didn't have to take up as much room, right? The other thing I also was you keep everything on your little player board, and like things get bumped around. I wish that those would have been maybe dual layered, but overall production was very nice, very much in line with other Stonemaier productions. I did like that the insert for the game was really nice, with the component tray that you pull out so that you can get your coins, your map tokens, your workers, all that kind of stuff. That was really nice. I do enjoy that in the game as well. Yeah. So that's my thoughts on the production. Did you have anything you want to add?
I liked the production too. I think it was good quality. I like the art. That was probably the coolest part too about being able to flip over the tiles was to see the different artwork. It wasn't all the same. So for me, that was my favorite part of the production.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. So next thing would be the preparation for the game. So learning the game, the teach, the setup, which I do pretty much all of this anyway. So with a lot of the games, I do the teaching, I do the setting up, all that stuff. So for me, this game is very quick setup, tear down, right? You're a few tiles out on the board, you put a couple cards out, everybody gets their stuff. Very quick, you pull out the little component tray. Very, very, very quick to get to the table. So that part is very nice. I give that a big thumbs up because if it's quick to set up, then it's going to hit the table a lot more often. Teach seems like it should be very simple and easy teach, right? Because you're just moving a cube and doing the actions that you didn't cover up. So move, play, gather, or refresh, right? Very straightforward, right? Moving 1 to 3 spaces, can't go to the same place as somebody else. You have to go to a different space. Pretty straightforward. Gathering, do what's on the tile. Very straightforward, right? Playing a card. It's the more intricate steps that come with certain actions when you do play a card or when you do gather, right? So I did mention that iconography can be a little tricky to get at the beginning, but when you're doing things like upgrade and meld and vanquish and solve, and you're going to see some of these on cards and some of these on tiles, that's where the teach gets a little bit more difficult because people have to learn these terminologies and understanding, okay, what is vanquishing again? What is solving? Oh, there's different kinds of cards for these different actions. Which ones do I use again? How do you know? That's where the teach gets a little bit more difficult for people, just because they meld. It's just a whole new kind of language, right? And what does it mean to be doing that? And I find that that's where the difficulty comes in with the teach.
Is melding even a word?
Yeah.
Like a real thing?
Right.
Because I've never heard melding before. So
yes. So in this game, when you're melding the meteorites, the pieces of the meteorite and everything, So yeah, very, very. That's where the teach gets difficult. I think that's where it's a little bit cumbersome when it comes to teaching.
Yeah.
And it's going to take those individuals probably at least half a game, if not a full game, to really grasp it.
Half a game. And for me personally, it took half a game to get it. I felt like, well, and I'm one of those people too. Like, you can read a rule book to me, but I have to play it to be able to learn it. Like, that's just how my brain works. But I felt like once I was like halfway through, I was like, oh, it's clicking. Like, it was starting to make sense.
Right.
So
again, I think it's just once you familiarize yourself with those terminologies, those icons, that makes the teach a little bit easier. So, but I would say after a play, you should be good. I think by the time you play the second time, you should be fine. So that's preparation.
Yep,
Gameplay. So, talking about the gameplay, the mechanics, the thematic immersion that you feel in the game, what did you think? I've been doing a lot of the talking. Do you want to go first for this one?
I mean, it does feel like you're exploring different areas, and you got I liked the part like having your companions throughout the game, so I felt like that was a cool part. And just going out, and each tile was like a different action, like different abilities that you could use. So for me, that was there was a lot of different, there was a lot of, I guess, variety of things that you could do in the game.
Right, yeah. So you could definitely focus on different things, which was nice. You didn't have to, everybody was racing for the same thing, right? Because you have your 4 stars that you're putting out.
Your glory.
Right. It did feel like you were exploring a little bit there, maybe loosely. I didn't feel like it was too big of a deal. I really enjoyed the card play, right? So this idea of gathering cards and kind of building up your hand and getting these workers and being able to trigger off maybe some ongoing abilities, some instant abilities, really kind of trying to put out stars to gather more power or more guile. So I really like that whole aspect of managing your hand and knowing when to refresh, or even utilizing the rescue ability to get those cards that are in your active row back. I really like the feel of that mechanic. I do wish it was a little cleaner looking, because you just had like a bunch of cards on either side. You don't have like a massive hand, but there could be times where I just like get a bunch of cards. Maybe I'm not playing optimally, but it does take up a lot of table space there. But I do like that mechanic and kind of managing your cards, managing your workers, and kind of trying to trigger off those different abilities in a cool way, to where they can work cohesively a little bit. I think there's a little bit of gameplay there with that. So I really did like that. Turns can be pretty snappy. It just depends, if somebody does one of those,
you're doing.
Right. If somebody's doing maybe a more intricate turn with vanquishing or placing their worker and doing that kind of stuff, whatever it is, turns might get a little bit lengthy, but I think once again people learn the terminology, they'll be pretty quick to upgrade to meld to do those things. It's just at the beginning there could be some downtime maybe, but you should be planning your turn obviously before it comes back around. But turns were pretty quick. There were definitely times where it would be like, oh, wow, it's back to me? Okay, done. Easy, because they did a real quick move and gather. Moving and get a worker, done.
Yeah.
Next person kind of thing. Some might be a little bit longer, but not too much. I think for the most part, downtime was relatively low.
Yeah. I like the tile play. Well, of course, obviously, I like the tile placement, because that's like my favorite mechanic.
Tile placement.
Yeah, you're not placing, but yeah, the exploration. Right. I guess I shouldn't say tile placement, because you're not placing it yourself. But I liked the whole exploring the different tiles. I don't know. I like any game, I feel like, that has tiles, especially ones where you're going out and you're exploring and you get to flip them. And like each of them are, different. So for me, that was like my favorite part of the game.
Right. I did like the asymmetry. Gameplay. Yeah, the asymmetry of the different mechs that you get. That was really nice. Luck and strategy. I don't think luck played too much a role. The only thing is Obviously, you don't know what tiles you're flipping over, so you might just happen to flip over into a tile that's where your quest is at instead of wandering around. So there's a little bit of luck there. And also with the cards that come out, I really need a meteorite card. I really need it, and they just don't come up. Or I really want a quest, but they don't come up, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so there is some luck in that aspect, but I don't think it's detrimental to the game. I think being able to I think the strategy definitely outweighs the luck there, and being able to manage that. So I do like that. I think it all felt thematic as well.
Yeah.
So, anything else that you wanted to add to gameplay?
Nope.
Nope. All right, and then that brings us to our last section.
Return on investment.
Yes, the return on investment. Did our level of enjoyment meet or exceed or fall short of the amount of time that we invested into the game? What's our preferred player count, that kind of stuff. So for me, I think that I do get quite a bit of a high return of enjoyment in this game. Like I said, setups and teardowns very quick. The teach can be a little rough the first time, but again, if you're playing with the same people, it's pretty snappy and quick, right? The box says it takes what, 60 to 90 minutes? I feel like that's pretty good.
That's accurate.
I think that's pretty accurate. If you're playing with a lower player count, that's fine as well. I don't mind it at 2 or 3 or 4 players. I think it all works just fine. The board doesn't change. You might not get blocked as much because if somebody's on a tile that you want to get to, you can't go there. But that's pretty much the real only player interaction. And I don't mind that because I'm kind of doing my own little puzzle thing. So there's not a ton of player interaction if you're looking for that. And I know you probably don't mind that at all because you don't really care for too much player interaction, especially if it's take that like. But there's no issues really here with that game, right?
I mean, there was a couple times where you were where I wanted to go, but it wasn't like, oh, I can't do anything else.
Right. You always had other options that you could do. So so I thought that was I would play it at any player count. I think I don't know. Maybe not at the 5 player count. I don't know if I would do 5. That'd
probably be a lot longer.
Yeah, I think 4 or less. I haven't played it at 5, but I don't know if I'd want to.
Yeah.
Right.
You'd need a giant table too.
Right. And the replayability is there, obviously, because, the tiles are going to be in different places. You're going to have different mechs that you can explore, different hero companions that you're going to have. So I think that there is a decent amount of replayability here. And I can only imagine that there will probably be future expansions. I can't imagine there not being. It's a side sequel. So, and I think it's doing pretty well so far. So so that I got a pretty high return on investment. What about you?
I feel like it met actually probably more like exceeded because I didn't really have too many expectations for it.
You're not a big fan of Scythe.
I'm not, and I'm gonna put that out there. And I don't want to offend anybody, but
sure.
I'm not really that big of a fan of Scythe, like you said, but Expeditions, I feel like for me it was more enjoyable than Scythe.
Okay.
So
with that being said, let's jump into our final scores. What would you give Expeditions?
I would give it, I would say like a 7.2.
7.2?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm going to come in right at an 8.4. I do really like this game a lot. I think it could go up for me as well, but I really did enjoy the play. I liked how quick the turns could be, the deep strategy that you could find behind the game. So I'm coming in at an 8.4. So really, really like Expeditions. Hopefully, if you've tried this game or if it's something you're looking forward to, please let us know down in the comments what you like, what you didn't like. Hopefully this answers some questions that you might have about the game. I know it's a very popular game, but that's going to be our thoughts on Expeditions. the sequel to Scythe. Ooh, I got the hiccups.
Heartburn.
Right. I think that's my body telling me time to go.
Yeah.
So we will see. Please like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.
See ya.